Good day. Today is the final installment of Alien vs. Predator Month, and we have saved the best for last. Today we're going to be taking a look at the novel that was based on the comic that started it all.
The cover does a great job drumming up interest, as it has both the alien and the predator in a pretty decent fighting pose. Even the name of the book works rather well. You see, the term prey could be used on all three factions. The humans are prey of both aliens and predators, and the predators are prey of both humans and aliens, and so forth. The title can also refer to the fact that there is always a larger animal. The human character at first can seem to be a little wimpy, but if you look closer, you can see that she is actually going for a gun that's just off to the side. Unfortunately, the gun she is going for does not actually appear in the book. The cover really does its job well, and definitely makes you want to actually pick it up. So with that, let's crack open this tome of utter awesomeness and take a look. The first couple of pages introduce two characters that thankfully die later in the book, although their manner of death is far too heroic for the both of them. In any event, they are starship pilots and are complete and utter drones. I refrain from using any other derogatory terms because using any of them would actually be an insult to the terms themselves. The characters basically just bloviate. Really, they're supposed to be representatives of the stupidity of humanity, and basically they're there to make the predators look better. Well, they spent all this time building them up. Here are the predators. And they have a real Klingon-esque society. I mean, it is so close that it is not even funny. Hell, even their foreheads look the same.
Commander Wolf's head looks like a fatty.
It's during these early Predator sequences that we are introduced to our first main character, a Predator named Dachshund. He is the leader of a Predator training vessel.
Unlike in that absolutely abysmal AVP film, Predators are not trained by simply dropping them into a bloody pyramid filled with aliens. Rather, they are assigned to a training ship under the tutelage of a master predator, and after being trained after a number of years, they are then taken to a planet where they are supervised on their first hunt. And no, they are not simply given edged weapons on their first hunt either. Rather, they are given plasma guns. See, that's the difference between somebody who can write and somebody who cannot.
Through Dachshund, we get just about all the backstory we would ever want about the Predators. We learn that their society is the direct inverse of ours. The females run everything and are generally larger than males. In fact, at one point, Dachshund states that if a male ever wanted to attempt to harm a female, that he would have to be both armed and an expert to stand at least half a chance.
Now, I will say this. It just depends on who you know, because there are quite a few women in this society that fit that description adequately.
After we are introduced to Dachshund, we meet our second main character, a woman named Machiko Noguchi. She is the new administrator of a colony world known as Rishi. This colony world is owned by the Chisaga Corporation. Now, this is the same world that the Predators are heading to go train. What Predators do is that in order to have ready-made targets for the students, a Predator ship will send out drones filled with alien egg to basically seed whatever hunting planet they're going to.
As should be expected, the Xenos are actually the main motivating factor of the story. In fact, it's the main reason why the humans actually come into contact with the Predators. Now, the Xenos, of course, propagate much more than Dachshund thought they would. In addition to that, one of the aliens actually turns into a queen, thus propagating the species even more, and providing the story with quite a few targets.
Everything comes to a head when a human scientist discovers the Predators. Now, he is of course spotted fairly quickly, and eventually he figures out that he can't actually escape. It's at that point that he decides to do a kamikaze run, and he ends up blowing up the entire Predator ship. Now, how he was able to do that while riding on what is essentially a hover motorcycle, I don't know. I guess the Predator ships just aren't made like they used to be. The blast kills the main command crew and incapacitates Dashende. When this happens, one of his students, who just so happens to be a ne'er-do-well, takes command and decides to attack the humans. These students are basically teenage analogs, and unfortunately Dashende must have been given the excrement end of the stick when it came to students, because these people are about as stereotypical as you can get. They're not as bad as, say, like Shia LaBeouf, but they're still pretty stupid nonetheless. Their first attack is on a lone human home, where they kill two stereotypical idiots that really had all the collected intelligence of an ashtray. Basically, until they start fighting the Xenos, the Predators have a pretty easy time of taking down the humans. Most of the time. At that same settlement, they failed to kill this kid. These mighty alien Predators couldn't take down one kid that was completely unarmed. He is able to escape and is able to warn the main settlement. But before the main settlement can actually be warned, the humans find the incapacitated body of Dashende and bring him back to the main settlement. A short time later, this same survivor actually makes it back. What's odd, though, is they bring him into the same room where Dashende is being held. This works good story-wise, as the survivor was able to say that these slightly inept Predator warriors are coming to kill everybody, but still, I would imagine they would have found a much better place to store this alien body rather than the bloody main hospital. I mean, you don't know what kind of diseases that thing has. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And in fact, there is a dedicated laboratory facility. Why not just take it there? After the town is warned, they start fortifying it using shipping containers and things of that nature. They actually only have a very small number of weapons, just basically shotguns, pistols, and a couple of pulse rifles. Now, all of the fortifications are actually absolutely useless. And that's mainly because there is a ship right in the middle of the town. The ship that was actually carrying our two annoying star pilots was actually a cargo ship. Rishi itself is an agricultural planet, and their main export is this creature called a Rillith. This is the same creature that a large number of facehuggers impregnated with xenomorphs. And all of those xenomorphs are now inside of that ship. So yeah, it's basically like building the greatest fortification of all time and opening a portal to hell right inside of it. But what's worse, the fortifications don't work anyway, and the Predators just steamroll over all of the humans. They don't kill everybody, they just kill the main defenders. And then they decide to celebrate. They have a whole bonfire, and they basically just dance around and act as stereotypical as they possibly can. While they're dancing around and acting a fool, Machiko decides to do the only sensible thing and evacuate the main settlement. She basically sends what's left of the survivors all the way out to the desert. Machiko then decides to try and convince one of the scientists studying Dashende to leave with her. But when she does this, the villain Predator attacks. And she seems to be chili meat until Dashende wakes up and lays the smackdown upside his head. While the smackdown is going on, Machiko and the scientist escape, only to be accosted by xenomorphs. They eventually shake the Xenos, and even try to save Dashende, but it's really to no avail, and they crash their hovercraft.
And this is the point where everything comes to fruition. Dashende and Machiko finally decide to team up to take down the Queen, so that they can stop the aliens before they spread around the world and kill the remaining colonists. The entire sequence leading up to the final battle is actually quite awesome, and definitely could have easily been filmed, and had it been, it would have probably been one of the greatest action sequences of all time. Although I have one single problem with it. Machiko is said to be armed with a 500 S&W.
This weapon here is the S&W 500, the single most powerful handgun in the world. Now when this book came out, this gun did not exist. So it really is pretty cool that the writer was able to predict this gun's existence. Now, Machiko is a small-framed individual, so I'm really not buying that she would be able to use this gun in the manner they describe. Basically, they say she is able to empty the cylinder in like 3 seconds. With a 500, there is no way anyone outside of a cyborg is going to be able to keep a good enough grip on the thing.
You can't even do that with a 44 mag. There is just no way that an unaugmented human can keep a good grip on a gun with that much recoil, much less fire it accurately.
Anyway, as should be expected, Machiko and Dashinde fight through hordes of Xenos until they finally face the Queen. However, the boss fight is more realistic than entertaining, so here is a dramatization of what should have happened. Also, in this instance, Rin Kurosawa is playing the role of Machiko Noguchi. And Dashinde did not remove his mask, as he actually had more than 2 brain cells to rub together.
Unfortunately, in the course of the fight, Dashinde is mortally wounded. But just before he dies, he gives her the mark of his clan, and thus she becomes, in his eyes anyway, a blooded warrior. Later, the humans leave Rishi, and actually Machiko stays. And she waits for 2 years until the Predators finally return to see just what happened to Dashinde. And when they do, she decides to join them, and, surprisingly enough, they actually let her join their own hunt.
Machiko Noguchi is a fairly decent character. She is strong in all the right places and grows quite a bit through the course of the story. However, she still does get annoying at times. Like when the Predators start attacking, she runs and hides in her room. Also, when she first encounters a Predator, she calls it a dragon. Here's a dragon, here's a Predator. Here's a dragon, and here's a Predator. It's pretty hard to mix them up, I'd have to say. And also, what is this? Why in the hell would Machiko want to kiss a Predator? This doesn't actually take place in the comic, but still, it's just pretty disgusting right there. Dashinde is just awesome. He's like the Predator equivalent of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Sylvester Stallone, and Jason Statham all mixed together. He is just awesome in every conceivable way. Enough said. He's the whole reason why you'd want to buy the book anyway. The Predator villain is okay. He does kill some people, but still, all he really amounts to is an evil teenager. Really, the only reason he becomes a villain is due to his stupidity more than anything else. The plot holes in the novel are not that bad, and since I'm feeling fair today, the only one I'm really going to call into question is this. On page 224, Dashinde remarks that he could not smell one of the Predator's musk because it was covered by the stench of dried fecal matter.
Dashinde does say that this was one of his less adept students. I have a feeling that this was one of his very, very special students indeed.
I mean, really, just because you get marooned on a planet does not mean that you have to lose all bodily control. I mean, it's like if you got lost in the woods as a teenager, you would find a bloody tree. Some mighty aliens these guys turned out to be. Unfortunately, the AVP book series is very, very small. It only consists of 3 books. And unfortunately, the first one is the best. I still recommend trying to find the other 2, if only to read events from a Predator's perspective. And in Hunter's Planet, several Predators do hunt down a T-Rex. Now we all know that the AVP movies were pretty bad. For some reason they just couldn't stick with the book and decided to go and make something idiotic, like they always do. But I recently found an AVP screenplay, and it was actually pretty good. It was basically AVP Prey, just streamlined for a movie, in ways that you would actually expect. I have to say that the screenplay actually improved upon Prey in many respects. For one, they changed Machiko's name into something that was a bit easier to pronounce, and for another, there is an instance where a predator actually uses a pulse rifle to kill a xenomorph. And finally, I happen to like the ending a little more. Instead of waiting 2 years, the predators show up right after Dashinde dies, and Machiko goes with them right then. They could have easily made this into a movie with the same damn budget. But then they would have made a good movie. And of course, we can't have that, can we?
Well, that about does it for Alien vs. Predator month, and I've really got to say, I am just sick of aliens and predators. Still, I hope that the Predators film is worth all the work I put into this month. But we'll just have to see.